Well, those people are being a long time over there, aren't they? If only they came and asked us, we could tell them all kinds of interesting things, couldn't we?
So food wasn't the only thing your husband was interested in?
Apparently not.
He must have enjoyed video recording, wouldn't you agree?
Well, if he did, there's nothing wrong with that, is there?
That depends what you're recording.
If you record other people's films illegally and then you sell them.
We call that video piracy, and it's against the law.
So?
Mrs. Gibbs, are you telling us you didn't know what was going on in your own house?
It's not in the house, is it?
In your own garage?
Anyway, even if it's illegal, it's a bit too late to put him in prison now.
Mrs. Gibbs, we're interested in catching his murderer.
And how will all these questions help to do that?
If he were involved in video piracy, this might be the lead we're looking for. Video piracy is taking other people's work, other people's ideas, and not paying anything for it.
And you're saying that that's what Matthew was doing?
With all this equipment, he could have reproduced a film any number of times in a few hours.
You don't know that he did.
We will, when we've gone through these tapes more carefully.
It's not enough that he's been murdered. You now want to prove that he was a criminal.
We want to find his murderer.
If that is what you want, you're certainly not making a very good job of it.
Mrs. Gibbs, did anyone come to the house to see your husband about video cassettes?
No.
Did anyone telephone him here?
Well, of course they telephoned him, but I don't know what they wanted.
Mrs. Gibbs, are you really telling us you knew nothing about all this?
Look, this is his garage. I hardly ever came in here. How could I have known what was going on?
She said she knew nothing about this. Do you believe her?
No.
Neither do I. I suppose she feels she has to protect her husband.
Maybe.
Anyway, Gibbs was getting his hands on video films and producing illegal copies.
It looks like it.
And then what? Was he using his contacts at the airport to export them?
He must have been. He went to a hotel, signed in under a false name, and then he was visited by people... well, by people who were taking the cassettes and distributing them abroad.
Airline crew?
Yeah, they'd be right for the job, wouldn't they? They fly in and out of the country. They could take a few cassettes each time without any problems.
That brings us back to Alec Lee.
Well, he's an airline pilot, yes. And he was a friend of Gibbs.
And he lied to us about it.
Still doesn't give him a reason for murdering Gibbs.
Maybe there was an argument about money. If Lee wanted more money for carrying the cassettes, they could have argued about that.
Don't forget Lee has an alibi. When Gibbs was murdered, Lee was having coffee with, what's his name?
Bernie Raystrick. Well, we can check on Raystrick. He's landing in an hour.
Yes, but
What?
if Gibbs took his gun with him to the hotel, he must have been expecting trouble.
Unless he always carried it with him. I know his wife said he didn't, but she claims she doesn't know much about anything.
So what happened? If he had his gun with him, how did he get shot?
Maybe there was a fight.
If there'd been a fight, we'd have seen signs of it in the room.
Hello? Over here.
Oh.
Her again.
Good morning.
You're from the police, aren't you?
Yes, we are.
And you're trying to find out about Matthew Gibbs?
Why? Do you have something to tell us?
Yes, I have. But first, I've got something I'd like to show you. Come on, come with me. There. If you want to know about Matthew Gibbs,
What on earth?
that should tell you all you want to know about Mr. Matthew Gibbs.
I've decided to change my lifestyle. From now on, I'm going to be fit and healthy. Did you know that if you exercise for half an hour every day in the open air, you never catch cold? Good morning.
Can you read, sir?
Oh, yes, I can read. In fact, I've just been reading a fantastic book by Kurt Vonnegut.
Well, if you can read, sir, why are you here?
Well, you see, I'm trying to keep fit. Training, you know.
Even so, sir, you are not permitted to walk on the grass.
I wasn't walking on it. I was running on it.
Running, eh? See now, running. Well, regulations don't say nothing about running, but I'm sure running is a more serious offence than walking. However, on this occasion, I shall be generous.
Oh, well, that's good.
On condition you do not repeat the offence, and provided you offer an apology, I shall take no further action in this matter.
I'm sorry.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Now, sir, whereas I am generous the first time an offence is committed, I am very, very tough when it is repeated by the same person. In this instance, yourself.
Yes, I see. I understand. I think. But still, it's a bit unfair, isn't it? I'm sure if you wanted to be fit, you'd train on the grass as well.
I must warn you, sir, that if you continue to argue, I shall take immediate action against you.
Even so, it's not as if I've done the grass any harm, is it? I mean, so long as you don't set fire to it or something, there's no harm in walking on it, is there? Maybe the grass likes being walked on. Maybe it enjoys it. Ever thought of that?
Well, I think it's time you got out of here, young man. And if you do not leave this park immediately, I shall call the police.
Okay, I'm going. Oh, by the way, give my regards to your wife, will you? Tell her I think she's a very lucky lady.
I'm afraid the canteen isn't open yet. Sarah! Sarah, what's the matter? What's happened?
This is Wimbledon Town Centre, one of the many small towns and villages that now form a part of London. The well-planned Victorian and Edwardian streets of Wimbledon are popular with people who want to live near central London, but who also enjoy greenery and open spaces. But if the council here has its way, this area will soon look very different. The town hall will remain, but most of the buildings near it will be pulled down to make way for offices and new roads.
Mr. Tilley, if this scheme goes ahead, will the town centre really be a better place?
I think it will be. The proposals opposite the town hall, for example, whilst they'll provide new offices, they'll also provide for quite a large number of new shops in the area. And I think what we have to look at is that towns don't stand still, they're always changing. What we're trying to look at in Wimbledon is proposals which will give Wimbledon a secure future. The way things are going at the moment, well, it hasn't really got very much of a future, and we're concerned to ensure that it does have.
How much support from the local residents do you have for your scheme?
Well, obviously there is opposition from local residents, and I understand and I appreciate that. There are provisions in the way in which we plan in this country for people to continue to have a say in what happens, almost up until the day when the builder moves on the site. So we have to take notice of what's happening, and we have to plan accordingly.
Mr. Tilley, you said just now that without new development, Wimbledon doesn't have a future. Why do you say that?
Well, the reason is that for the last few years, Wimbledon has been losing a lot of its shopping trade to surrounding town centres which have been developing. Now, if nothing happens to try and encourage people to come and shop back in Wimbledon again, then the trade which is existing in the town centre will continue to decline. There won't be sufficient to support the existing shops which are there at the moment and which people love. And so they will cease to trade, they will pack up and the shops will close, and it's a vicious circle. It just keeps getting worse and worse. So something has to be done to try and put that right, and that's what the proposals are about.
I think most residents in Wimbledon, like residents anywhere, would like to see some improvements. It's the demolition, the large-scale demolition that we're against. If we look at post-war urban redevelopment, we've got a lot of reasons to be nervous.
So, Mr. Thwaites, what steps can the people of Wimbledon take to stop their homes from being threatened?
I think that this whole question, if it is to remain a question, must be put before the people in the form of a referendum or in the form of council elections to give the people of Wimbledon the opportunity to make up their minds quietly and without someone standing over their shoulder to fill out a form.
What exactly do you mean by a referendum, Mr. Thwaites?
Well, a referendum is giving the whole of the electorate, that is, all of the people in the area, an opportunity to vote on a single issue.
Can you tell me what you think of the council's plans to redevelop the centre of Wimbledon?
I'm very strongly against it. Very. If you change the face of the buildings, they're going to change the face of Wimbledon, aren't you? Yes. Well, that's what I think of it. I mean, we know that new developments are necessary, but I don't think it's necessary for the centre of the town.
I think it's a bad idea because I don't think Wimbledon really needs to be another town centre like Croydon or Kingston.
You know, I suppose it's got its good points and its bad points.
I'd have to say I'm against it then.
All over Britain, similar battles are now being fought. More and more people are now asking the same question. If we allow our old towns to be destroyed, what sort of society will we pass on to our children?
If I hadn't left the frying pan on the stove, there wouldn't have been a fire.
Yes, but at least you're not hurt, and that's the main thing. There was a fire in a house in our street 2 years ago, and 3 people were killed. Just imagine what would have happened if you'd gone to bed and left the pan on the stove.
Well, I wouldn't have done that. I'm not that stupid, you know.
No, of course not. Was a bit silly, though, wasn't it?
Yes, Mrs. Belmont, it was very silly.
How much damage is there?
Well, the kitchen's almost totally destroyed, and the sitting room's quite badly damaged.
Well, it's not as if the whole house was burnt down, is it? You've still got your bedrooms after all.
They're ruined too, with the water. The fire brigade filled the house with water, everywhere.
Yes, that was probably to put the fire out.
If only I'd been more careful. You see, the telephone rang while I was cooking. Do you know who it was? It was Ted.
You see? It wasn't your fault at all. If Mr. Stenhouse hadn't rung you, there wouldn't have been a fire. It's all his fault. I've never liked that man. Come on, I'll make you another cup of coffee.
The National Control Centre is responsible for the national grid and the transmission of electricity to all consumers in an area bounded by the south coast of England right up into the Scottish border, which includes the whole of Wales. Our prime function is to produce electricity as cheaply as possible for our consumers and to keep a reliable supply so that there are no losses at any time, 365 days a year.
We can't store electricity, so that we have to produce the electricity as the consumer demands it. And this means that it might fluctuate very violently as after TV pickups. A popular TV program can make our load change by, well, it has just done in the last week by 2,500 megawatts, which is an awful lot of megawatts, and we've got to be prepared to meet that within a few minutes. If we see it coming ahead of us, that's easy to do. If we don't see it coming, then it can lead us into some trouble, for which we've got lots of automatic controls to get us out of trouble, such as gas turbines coming on automatically. We have outside sources that we can contract with or barter with for megawatts. And we have spare megawatts, of course, running all the time, for which to take the fluctuations of the demand out.
How do you know when and where the electricity will be needed?
The coal fields are all in the Midlands or north. The demand is, a lot of it is in the south, so we are transferring a lot of megawatts all the time from the north to the south. The lines, the overhead lines that you see sitting quietly in the countryside, will only hold or carry so many megawatts, and it's our job to see that they are not overloaded. The demand is really temperature-based, so that if the temperature drops, the demand will go up. In fact, in this country, it's been the same figure for about 25 years. It's about 400 megawatts per degree in change of temperature. Otherwise, the main factors are wind, particularly if it's cold wind, because people react to cold wind as if the temperatures drop when it hasn't, if you know what I mean, because it makes the fabric of the houses feel colder if you have a cold wind against it.
The weather effects which we take into account in our demand weather models are primarily temperature, air temperature, then wind speed and direction, which combine with the temperature to provide what we call cooling power, which affects the electricity demand in buildings by virtue of the heat losses with drafts around windows and doors. This is particularly important in winter months when the air temperature is very cold and very often good strong winds as well.
Bad weather can give us many problems, not least of all when there's blizzards blowing across the country, causing our conductors to wave or bounce or even clash on occasions. These circuits will trip out, and when the things have settled down, they will then automatically switch themselves back in again.
Apart from the weather, what other causes are there?
Well, the time of year, of course, where the demand will alter for every week of the year, from the middle of the winter or from now, which is the sort of maximum week, if it's very cold, down to the middle of the summer, and then the summer holidays.
Are there any other areas that cause headaches?
Not really, no. It's only special conditions like Charles and Di's wedding, which produces a daily low curve that we have no idea what it's going to be beforehand. We have to meet that demand or shut down plant to make sure that we still meet the electricity at the minimum cost.
Can you store the electricity you produce?
We make an effort to store by having Dinorwic, which is a water power station, storage station, and to do that we pump or lift water at night up the mountain in Wales to the top and let it run down during the day, but otherwise we can't store it at all.
We're interested in estimating what the demand for electricity will be in a 2-hour, 4-hour, 1 day, 1 week and 1 year ahead. That sounds very difficult, and of course it is very complex, because we can only be as good as the information which is supplied to us from the weather centre at Bracknell. We take this information and we assess what the demand will be on a particular day.
The peak of the day will be at 5:30 this evening when it gets dark. It will be a very high peak because it's very wintry weather outside at the moment. And tomorrow, if the same conditions apply, we shall probably get the peak of the year because it's colder than normal and the weather's worse than normal. We've got blizzards in the Midlands and North and Scotland at the moment, even though it's only raining here. all of which produce a lot of load. After the evening peak, it goes down all through the evening. We then have TV pick us on the popular programs that end around 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, which may just give a slight jump in the demand curve, depending on the popularity, which we've got to work out ourselves beforehand. And then it just runs down until 1 o'clock in the morning, when we have the off-peak storage heating that comes on. Everybody tries to use cheap electricity if they can. This will lift the load up again at that point for a little while, and then it will run down to the minimum at about 5:30 in the morning and start coming up again for breakfast.
We're very proud of our record. We seldom get any shutdowns or losses of consumer demand. Our biggest problem, of course, is adverse weather. But we would say that most days we meet consumer demand in full, and we meet it very economically.
If you need help...
If I needed help, Billy, I wouldn't ask you.
Why not? I know quite a lot about micros. Now, do you have any questions?
Yes. Have you seen my shoes? I can't find them anywhere.
I know where they are. On your feet.
Not those. My spare shoes, you know, the soft black ones.
Oh, sorry. No idea. Now, what happens if I press this button here?
Oh, that's exactly what I was trying to make it do. Thanks, Billy.
It's a pleasure.
I didn't have time for breakfast this morning.
You want my sympathy? I never have any breakfast. Proto, you eat too much. If you missed a few more breakfasts, you'd be a healthier person.
Perhaps, but food is a pleasure as well as a need, you know.
Oh, listen, Proto, if I hadn't gone on a diet 5 years ago, I'd be a dead man by now. Heart attack. Curtains.
Nonsense. You Americans think of nothing but your health. It's very unhealthy.
What a mess, Joe. If people in this office learned how to use the computer properly, then we wouldn't have all these papers lying around.
Well, what did you lose?
A pair of shoes.
There's a computer that finds shoes?
What do you mean there wouldn't have been a fire if I hadn't phoned?
You made me forget the frying pan. You're always calling me at home. It's very irritating. Whenever I'm about to have a bath, you phone me.
Well, I wouldn't have phoned if it hadn't been urgent.
Well, what was it about?
I can't remember.
Oh, great.
Look, Sarah, I'm sorry. I'll tell you what. I'll buy you lunch.
Where? A fish and chip shop? Well, that's cheap. It should suit you.
No, somewhere nice. I'll ask Prodip. He knows about restaurants.
Phone call for you, Mr. Stenhouse.
I'm busy, Colin.
Yes, but...
I said I'm busy. I don't care who it is. I don't want to take a phone call at the moment. I happen to be dealing with a personal problem of one of my staff, and that's much more important than any business phone call. Is that clear?
Yes. It's Mr. Smith.
Oh, right. Good morning, Mr. Smith. What can I do for you?